Hello everyone, welcome to Cliniko Coffee, kind of evening edition, at least evening for me, although I know probably morning for plenty of people. So the way this is going to work is you can ask me any question you like in the comments here on YouTube and I will go through and try to answer all of them for you. They can be comments about Cliniko, questions you have on how it works, things you wanted to do, anything else related to Cliniko. If you want to talk about coffee, I'm happy to talk about that. And also, if you have questions about our business or anything else, just really happy to answer whatever it is that you have for me. I'm keen to know, to help me out with this, where people are. So if you can post in the comments, if you wouldn't mind, where it is you're located and maybe what modality or role you have in your business, that would be great so I get an idea of who I'm talking with. As we get started and as questions start to come through, I'm just going to start to make myself a coffee. Exciting part of this session, obviously. So I'm going to make a pour over coffee. I'm curious as well, people that are watching along, if you make pour over coffee, if you go with espresso, not a coffee drinker, anything you want to share in the comments would be great. So for the pour over coffee, for those that maybe don't drink it, I'm using a V60, which is this device here to do the pour over coffee. And I would say pour over coffee is probably more akin to a tea-like coffee, although I'm slightly reluctant to mention it's like tea if we have people from the UK watching along. Looks like we do, being kind of the home of tea. So I would say it's just like a lighter, milder coffee and maybe more of the flavors in it that come through. I saw a mention of AeroPress in the comments there, which is good. So another type of filter coffee. So I've got to wet the paper to rinse the paper out and also heat up the jug and the V60. That was the kettle noise. If you're hearing beeping and wondering what's beeping. That too, just the kettle saying it's at the temperature that is correct. Just grabbing my coffee. I see questions starting to come through now. So the coffee I'm having, I think you'll be able to see it. If I get it close enough, maybe it will refocus. There we go. So it's a Colombian geisha natural that I'm brewing here from a roaster in Melbourne called Proud Mary. And I'm just weighing out the coffee. I do 24 grams for this brew. So there's a question that's come through. Are there any projected plans to have a new client appointment type that would have the prerequisite of being prepaid only while leaving other appointment types optional in the online booking system? So that one you can already do. You can specify for appointment types. So you can already specify per appointment type is sort of status of payment required. So you can go through, if you go to settings, appointment types, and you can say it requires a payment, or it can have a payment, or you just don't accept payment at all for it. I know we're working on a pretty big change with this one because the interface to sort of go through and do them all is a little clunky at the moment, and a change that we've got coming is to bring in a sort of a new bulk change for appointment types. And it will be used for this purpose, but also for other settings that you can change in the appointment types, where you'll just be able to go and select numerous of your appointment types or filter down to a list of them and then apply a settings change to all of those. So that's something we're working on at the moment, but already you can do so. If you need to, you can always use the help within Cliniko. So go to the help and chat with us if you're still unsure, and they'll be able to walk you through exactly how to do it right now. Like I said, with the bulk feature coming to make it easier to do them all at once. I'm just going to grind the coffee, which I have no idea how loud that's going to be to you listening in. So if you have headphones or something, maybe just turn it down for a second while I do the grind. Okay, that's done. Okay, so someone asked, where is the coffee from? So the coffee is a Colombian coffee, and it's for a Roaster Proud Mary in Melbourne. Hi Joel, are there any updates coming soon for the online forms? Map the form fields to the data fields. Absolutely. So this is one of the bigger changes that we've got coming and on the go at the moment. So we've been spending a lot of time doing the design part of it, and it's just about ready to start getting developed now. And that's exactly what you're suggesting, is the ability so that the forms might have a name, address, things like that that are already in your patient record. And when they fill it in, for it to insert that straight into Cliniko itself. Now, so bear with me 1 second, I'll just grab a spoon. So that's in design, almost done, ready for development very soon. It's definitely coming. There's a few things we haven't sorted out yet, like the security mechanisms around how are we sure that the patient's the real person at the other end. In order to let them insert that data straight into the patient record, we probably need a little bit more verification than just the email that we send out to them at the moment. And we're not sure entirely yet how we're going to do that part of it. But it is being worked on now, which means it'll be coming soon. A lot of times, and we'll probably get some questions like this in this session, but if there's something we haven't started working on, it's very hard for me to know how far away it is. I can know if we want to work on it, if we think that's a good idea, or do I think, probably it's going to come higher in the priority or lower. But when something's actually been worked on, it's a really good indication that it's in the sooner basket. So I'm just going to start to pour this coffee here. So the first part of it, for anyone that does do a pour over, is usually called the bloom, and this is releasing the gases out of the coffee. So I'm doing 400 mils of water in total, and I'll do 100 mil for the bloom here to get the air and the gas out of it before I do the rest. So question here, a way to assign insurance types to an invoice like TAC DVA for reporting and easier reconciliation of payments. So we don't have any current work on the go to solve that problem, but we do have an area in Cliniko that is third-party payers, and it's in the contacts area. Now, the original plan when building that in was to tie it back to the invoices and payments and to the patient record for exactly what you're asking, to allow for better reconciliation and tracking of those third-party payments. We haven't made progress on it, and that feature, at least the contacts part of it's been there for quite some time, and we haven't got to that next step yet. I'm just going to stop the kettle beeping so that you don't keep thinking something's going off in your house. So definitely it's something we want to do, but we haven't started work on it yet, and I expect that it's some time off because we're not actively working on it. So there is workarounds with the way Cliniko operates at the moment for those scenarios. You may be already doing them, which is why you're asking this question, or if not, again, you could reach out to the help within Cliniko itself, and we can chat to you about some options if you put a bit more detail as to what you're looking to do with that. So I'm just going to pour this last bit of the water in here, the rest of the 400 ml, and then I'll have a nice coffee to enjoy during the rest of this session. Okay. So I'm just checking another one about iPads. So someone's asking about using the Apple Pen with an iPad to write notes and save it in the notes section of the clinic patient history. So there are ways to do this already, and whether you're using the Apple Pen or if you want to even draw on some handwriting with your finger, or you can do it on a computer with a mouse, there is ways to do handwriting right now into Cliniko Notes, and it's not just for iPad either. The only caveat to that is you'll be using a third-party keyboard that takes handwriting and converts it to text to store into Cliniko. And there's some very good ones around that do that right now. The biggest sort of hurdle with it, or thing that you need to check out, is the privacy statements of any of these third-party tools, because some of them will send the information and the handwriting you do back to their servers, either to store it or to process it, and there can be privacy implications of your treatment notes going to that third party. So there's plenty of keyboards. You find them in the App Store on iPad and also on like Android tablets as well. And you can look them up, and they're just going to be called a handwriting keyboard. And they do the job really well. Just check, you need to look into it. I don't have any I know offhand that sort of meet all the privacy requirements and rules, but just check into it, and then you could do that already. You could do that today, whatever time it is for you. So another question about online concessions. So at the moment, if someone's booking online, as you probably know because you're asking this question, we can't actually, or we don't actually check to see if they've got a concession or not for the payment. Now, a lot of this comes around the fact that we don't actually have the patients log in to do their online booking. So we're not verifying the person that's booking in, we're matching them up based on some information they enter on that form. So to then go and display to a person who we haven't verified that there's a concession or not, or really provide any information back out of Cliniko, we would need to change the way the online bookings works and do some sort of verification, be it a username and password or something else, maybe a text message that confirms that person. It's not out of the question, and we're talking about doing some of those kind of things for the patient forms that I mentioned earlier, and also potentially around payments in online bookings as well. So I think that maybe we would revisit that once we have some way of verifying the person during the booking, but right now we wouldn't just add it to how it works already. So I've got a question from Janice. Are you developing the invoicing system once payment received? This updates the invoice as paid. I probably need a bit more info, Janice. When you say when the payment is received where? I'm not sure if you're integrating with like a credit card provider. Are you talking about Stripe or something else? If you could just let me know some more details, Janice, I'll have another go at that one for you. So we've got, with video consultations, will there be the ability to view all participants large rather than one at a time, and also to write notes alongside the video? Sure. So the notes alongside the video, you're probably seeing down the bottom of the video page that there's a bit of a, this is in beta notice. So that's our area where we're planning to have you able to write your treatment notes while you're still on the screen. We actually thought we would get to it sooner than we have. However, the video technology part has been a lot of work, and as many that are watching this might know, we sort of built that very rapidly as COVID-19 started to ramp up, and we've still been working on the tech part of it and not moved on to the section underneath yet. It's definitely in our plans. We've done all the design work for it. We just need to find the development time to implement it. And the other question that came with it was the view. I haven't heard of that request before. It's possible. I assume you mean like a tiled view where you see everyone equal size. Potentially is all I can say, because it hadn't been brought up, at least to my knowledge, and I know we weren't planning to do so. There was a lot of work that went into the design of that page to assist you in making eye contact with the person you're talking to. So trying to make sure that the video of the person you're speaking with is front and center, most likely near your camera. So when you look at the face of the person in the video, you're also looking at your camera, and to them, they're getting that eye contact. And I think we would lose a little bit of that in the grid mode, but it wouldn't preclude making it an option for sure. So I've got someone saying they're a beginner in Cliniko, this is from Maria, and they won't have many questions about it, but they want to know what flavors I'm getting from the pour over. I'll be able to let you know very soon. So I've just poured it, and I find with the pour over, while it's hot, there's not much flavor to be had. And maybe as it cools down, I'll be able to get something from it. So I'm going to give it a minute before I try. A question, any plans for QuickBooks integration? So not immediate plans, I would say. We've chatted to them a little bit, we've thought about it. Integrations like that, we've done the 0-1 already, and they're really a lot of work, way more work than we imagined going into it. So when we did the 0 integration, I think we had it up and running in a basic format in maybe 3 weeks. And now we're years on, and we're still working on it every month, not quite every week, but really often. And they just turned out that all the edge cases and all the little bits requires a lot of ongoing development. So to add another one and sort of double that work to be doing too, it's hard to prioritize it amongst other things we have when we already have the 0-1. So I don't rule it out, but with finite development time, I don't think it's something we'll get to too soon. So we have a challenge of sending invoices to multiple emails up to 4 accounts for case managers. Is there currently a workaround? I think we're validating the email address now that doesn't let you put multiple email addresses into the one field. Maybe someone from our team, I see Martina's in the chat there, might know better than I on that. So I think we do stop you putting the multiple separated by a comma or something. It used to be allowed. I think we'd have to build it in as a true feature to be able to handle that. So I don't know. I think Martina will be best, or you can reach out via the chat in Cliniko to see if they've got ideas for you on that one. Do we have any plans, this is from Stuart, do we have any plans to add a payment source for expenses? Stuart, are you able to provide just a little bit more detail what you mean exactly by that? What are you trying to do with it, what you're trying to achieve? And then I could give you a better answer on that one. What else have we got here? It'll be great if when in treatment notes view you can see a tab with the client forms. At the moment I find it difficult. Okay, so this is from Sarah, and this is about being able to see what the patient has submitted in a form whilst you're on the treatment notes. I agree. I don't know what the solution is yet because the treatment notes page is pretty complex already. So we have the ability to write a new note. On the side we have the ability to view the recent notes. We also have the ability to look at the past and upcoming appointments. We've got the medical alerts at the top. There's a fair bit of information in that page right now. We would have to have a look at it. I think there's merit to it, and honestly I don't like where the patient forms sit at the moment. I think that they're out of the way, and you may not even know that they're there or back there in their current state. Maybe a better solution for it is going to be some sort of timeline feed where instead of just looking at treatment notes or just looking at forms or just looking at appointments, maybe we see some kind of feed that shows a timeline of events for a particular patient or client, and then there'll be intermingled treatment notes, forms, if you did a phone call or something like that. Maybe we don't need to have it all so separate and could be a solution, but it's not something we're working on at the moment. So I've got a question from Victoria. Can we add the appointment type on the invoice report? It's a possibility. You just need to let me know what invoice report you're referring to, and also what you would do with it. Because a lot of times we just need to understand the cause and make sure that we're doing the right solution to solve what you need. But if you could provide details, that's something we can consider for sure. Also, if people don't know while I go through some of these things that are requests for things to be added, we do have a community site, if you don't know already. It's community.cliniko.com, and on there is a feature request area that you can go and let us know the things that you would like to see added to Cliniko. We do read everything that goes onto that forum and check it out, and it can help to guide us when we're prioritizing features. So if there is things that you want Cliniko to do and it's not doing already, then it's a really good place to go have a look and also see what other people are suggesting through there as well. Just give me 1 second, I'm going to grab a water very quick. Okay, so I see Janice followed up with some extra information on her question before about automatically paying an invoice in Cliniko, and they're using Stripe at the moment. So we're not working on that right now, but we do have a fair bit of work going on for payments in general, and I think that that's going to come. I think that definitely what you're asking for, the ability for sort of more of a two-way communication with Stripe, will come about. Some things that we're working on is the ability to charge payments not just in online bookings. So a lot of people would like to do payments just in the clinic, maybe do them through Cliniko rather than having a terminal. Perhaps you want to be able to send out an invoice via email and have some payment details on that for them to be able to click and go pay. So these are payment options that we're working on at the moment. And I think, especially when we send out an email and we have them go do a link and pay, we're going to need to be able to reconcile that back in Cliniko. So I would expect it will all come together in that part of it. So we've got a question from Sarah about tagging clients to be able to filter for like SMS and email campaigns. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, is get some sort of tagging or categorization that is pretty flexible into the clients and patient records, like you mentioned, to use for campaigns. But you might want to use it for reporting or when you're doing your data exports for something. I think there's a lot of places you could use it. It goes in the category of absolutely I would like to do it. If you asked me a few years ago, I would have thought we've done it already. It hasn't got to the top yet. I hope it does soon, but we don't have direct plans for it now. So it means I'm just not sure at the moment when that would come to be, but I believe it will. I think it's too valuable to not. So someone's asking about the treatment notes. They have to search at the moment. They have to scan down chronologically, like looking for an old note in a timeline, and they'd like to be able to search for it by date. We do have a search, but I think it's only searching by text at the moment within the notes. Perhaps one of our team, I know we've got a few in the team that are watching along now, could make a separate note for a request on this, that search that we're using for text could also search dates, and then potentially you could type a date in that search to bring up a note from that time. I think that would make sense. So we've got a question from Matthew about zero integration and some of that two-way integration, kind of like what we were talking about before with Stripe. So yes, we want to do that, and in fact the zero integration is something that we've got a lot of plans for improving, and what you're mentioning, that two-way synchronization and update, is one of them. I don't have a timeline for it yet, but again, we are working on a bit of payment stuff at the moment, so we're making progress in that direction. So someone's asking about sending emails via their own domain with like DNS CNAME entries. I'm trying to remember why we couldn't do that in the first place. So I know we can't just like spoof from your name like we used to. We used to do it like that, and we were getting pretty low deliverability rates. So what that means is when we send an email, we can send it from any address we want, as can you. You can go into your email program, put someone else's address and send an email, and that will work. But a lot of mail providers won't accept it anymore. They're detecting it as fraudulent and blocking those emails. So what we did in Cliniko to fix the problem is we now send emails from us, but we put your address as the reply to, so that it gets accepted by the email provider, and when they reply to it, it still comes back to you. We also just put the name of it is your name via Cliniko, just to let people know, because if they add it to their address book, we don't want them to add the Cliniko address to their address book. We want them to make sure they're adding your address. So it did solve the problem. It means you get the replies, and the deliverability rate has gone up. But it's not directly sending sort of from your email server. And I'm not even sure that we're able to do so, Chris. What I'd suggest probably, maybe that's background on why we do what we do right now. But if you've got further questions on that, possibly send it through to our support, and we could chat with our operations team to see if it was viable, or if not, why it is we didn't take that approach. So Sarah's got a question, an update on the status of notifications. So one of the things that we're working on is notifications, be it via email to you or other formats, or perhaps integrations with other programs to send you a notification when something occurs. So it could be when someone fills out a form, which is the example that Sarah's put here. It could be that they cancel their appointment. It could be that someone's arrived. It could be a treatment note done, or whatever it might be. You could set up different events that send some sort of notification to you. Now, we started working on this. We made pretty good progress, but the developer that was working on this one has pivoted for now to work on something important for invoices and payments, and around doing refunds better in Cliniko. So they're working on that part at the moment. That's almost ready to go live, and then they'll get back to the notifications once done with that. So I would hope we're weeks away from notifications, but it's a bit of a guess while no one's currently on it. So it could be longer than that for sure. Okay, so got a follow up from Stuart on the payment source for expenses. Okay, so this is paying for expenses, and if they can do, recording, whether it's from a credit card or PayPal or something like this. I don't even know if we have workarounds for that at the moment. Maybe someone in our team that's in the chat, if there is any workarounds, could let Stuart know about that. As far as working on a change there, I think it makes sense, and we should do it, but it's probably going to be low priority for us. I don't think we have any work coming on the expenses part of it anytime soon. So it's one of those ones where I agree, and I think it's needed, but I don't think realistically that's going to be something we tackle in the short to medium future. I think my coffee's going to be ready now. So question, the ability to highlight or put text in bold in clinic notes. Easy to see important things. So we again, it's one of those ones we kind of looked into a little while ago, was formatting in treatment notes, and we did some behind the scenes work to allow us to do it, but never took that next step to actually go ahead and do the task. So it's one that's definitely planned. We've done some precursor work to make it possible, but it's not being worked on right now, and I think that there's still plenty ahead of it in the queue before we get to it. So there was numerous formatting things we were planning to do in the treatment notes, including bold, but there'd be a lot more than that, but I think it's on the back burner for the moment, so I'm not sure how far off that will be. There is a few things that's worth mentioning that are on the back burner now, and we were working on it pre-COVID-19, and really as a company we switched priorities quite a bit as that hit and as the world changed like it has, to make sure we were focused and working on things that allow teams to work in the current environment. So, we released telehealth pretty fast. The online patient forms was something we weren't working on, and we switched to pretty quickly to get going. And there's been a number of other changes that we've released, specifically to handle clinics that need to work remotely for periods, or new processes they might need in place now. And we've still got more changes coming in that regard. Like there's a lot of work going on at the moment to handle time zones better, so that if you are doing telehealth, and particularly for people in different regions, that Cliniko will handle that in a nice way. So there's some stuff that got started before then, or just priorities we had before then, that have shifted pretty rapidly over the last few months. Someone's asking about notification of client birthdays. I think that'd be perfect for the notifications module that we're building. So there's a proactive notification that comes up to you rather than just having it on the patient page like we do at the moment. So I think we'll handle birthdays a lot better when that comes about. So I've got a question from Keith. What was the other grinder on my right? And do I only brew pour overs and not espressos? So the one that I've got here was the EK47, which is a very common grinder for pour over and filter. And this one also is a Melconic, and it's a K30. So that one is for espresso. It's a flat burr grinder and very good for espresso grinding. And I have an espresso machine just off the side there that you can't see. So for myself, I just drink pour over. So I brew that mostly. But I do make espresso or lattes and things for others, so I'll still use it, but just not for myself. Definitely filter coffee is my preferred. But if we're doing more of these Cliniko and coffee sessions, I might move the setup over to the espresso area for another one and go through some espresso making as well. It looks like I'm slightly up to date on the questions at the moment. So one tip I have for the espresso, soon as it was asked about, if I can find it. So if you have a coffee machine, one of the most important things I find with it is to replace the basket inside. The basket makes a big difference for the quality of the espresso you can do. So I use a brand of basket called VST, and this is a 20 gram ridgeless. I'll see if I can hold it close. So it's quite a deep basket, and it doesn't have any of those notches on the side. And they also sort of precision check all the holes in them. And they're about $20 Australian, I think they are. So a fairly effective investment for, if you've got an espresso machine, to spend an extra $20 and get a significant improvement to your coffee. The other thing I have while I have a minute between questions is, again, sort of a bit of niche equipment. So this here, they call it, probably appropriately, this one's called an OCD, which is something coffee distributor. I don't remember what the O stands for. Oh no, the brand. And the idea of this is that when you put your coffee into there and before you tamp it, you can sit this on top and just twist it. And that will spread the coffee nice and even and flat in there before you do the tamp, to make sure that you're tamping the coffee in evenly and not compacting too much of it in one side. Because when the water pours through, it'll go for the easiest path, and you won't necessarily get consistent pour through your coffee. So these can help a lot. Okay, I've got a question from Kingston Feet about patient forms automatically into the records. I answered this one earlier, so I'll give the quick version this time, which is yes, it's underway, and I'm not sure how much longer it will take to finish, but we're working on that right now. Stuart's asking about using the appointment pop-up for client birthdays and notifications. We try really hard not to put more into the appointment pop-up because of how small it is and how much information and controls are already in there. So anytime there's something that we have a desire to put in there, we kind of fight against it for a while to make it really earn that spot, because we know that it can get really full and then hard to use if we let everything in. That said, I think we could get creative in birthdays. It is an obvious place for it. The person comes in, you're going to check them in, you're going to click patient arrived or whatever you do in that process. And it definitely makes sense workflow-wise for it to be there. So I don't know design-wise how we could do, but I think it makes a lot of sense to be in the appointment pop-up. So there's a question that's come about adding a buffer to the end of the appointment. So we have some workarounds for that at the moment. I don't know if we have a help guide up about adding that buffer. I have a feeling we do. And if we do, then I think someone in our team that's in the chat there could link to you perhaps a help guide for that workaround. But that said, we've had some discussion recently. It's been a feature request that's come up numerous times with it, and we kind of haven't made it high priority because of the fact that there's a workaround for it. However, as we're focusing on things that are related to COVID-19, and a lot of clinics now are having to put into place special processes for after a session. So maybe it's just a different cleaning regime that you're doing after you've seen someone, or maybe because of the protective equipment you need to wear, you need some extra preparation time per session. So I think that whilst it's always been it would be nice and there's a workaround, I think there's a very compelling case for it right now. And I know there was more discussion on it. So I'm not sure that anyone's picked it up yet, but I personally would like to see that come very soon. And I think that, it matters right now to do that one. I see there's some comments coming in with some suggestions on how to do so. And I think Martina's also responded with it. And we don't have a help guide, so maybe we can't point you across to somewhere. Now, if it's of interest to people as well, there's a couple of things I thought I'd mention when I have a little bit of downtime. Well, I've got ambitious repouring this, that's quite full now. So if anyone does have questions related to working remotely, if that's of interest, I'm happy to talk to it in case any of you are now doing that telehealth and working remotely or have some constraints put upon you with the current situation. So if you don't already know, Cliniko, our team is a fully remote team. So we've been like that since we started in 2010. We've got about 40 people in the team that work around the world. Mostly we just hire people, the best person we can find, irrespective of where they are. So we've had a lot of practice for working remotely before COVID-19 and a lot of the restrictions came in place. I'm happy to share any tips or answer any questions on that front, although I would preface it with saying that absolutely this is not normal working from home situation for those that are. So even for our team, that I would say are very seasoned, experienced people with working from home, a lot of people are struggling during this time because of the changes, whether it's kids at home or just different circumstances of what's going on and anxiety and stress. So, maybe I have some tips on that front if you have questions on it, but also I would say these, even for a remote team, these can be a struggling time. So someone's asking about the ability for clients to reschedule their appointment online. I think this would be really good, and probably, Chris, that one's going to come back to, again, whether we have some sort of verification for the client to be able to do so. And when we first built online bookings, which was quite some time ago, I think we launched online bookings maybe 6 years ago or even longer than that. It was quite early on, and really just the ability to book in online was a point of difference and exciting and really good. And now I think that, there's becoming, it's expected, and we're starting to want to be able to do more functionality around it. And it's starting to become compelling to have this verification, potentially a login or an account, I'm not sure. We've always really fought against having an account for your clients and patients, because we don't think people want to remember another username and password for the clinic that they go to, not so regularly. And we don't want to put any hurdles for someone booking an appointment with you. So we don't want it that they go to your site, they want to book an appointment, and they have to either sign up with you or log into an account before they can even see if you're available or how it's working. That's going to affect the number of bookings you get online. And we really worked hard to make it that if you're using our online bookings, we want to help you convert better. We want it to be that when they get there and they have the intent to book, that they actually do when they finish that booking. and not put anything in the way that can prevent it. So it's just where we need to be careful on how we go about it. But we're certainly keen to add more functionality like that. And I think there's going to be some bigger changes to online bookings or that whole section in order to accommodate some of these other needs. As for flavors from my coffee, I would say the only definitive one I have so far is strawberry. I think it's not uncommon for a geisha variety to have those fruity flavors. And especially I usually do a low extraction, which brings out more of that fruity sour flavor. So Keith's asking about grouped reminder emails, and I do not know, Keith, what you're referring to. Could you give me a bit more info, please, so I can answer that one for you? Now I have a challenge here because as well as skimming the YouTube comments that I look at, so we use Slack for our team communication, and there's people in our team that are helping me out and grabbing questions that are coming up in the YouTube comments and posting them to me summarized so I can scan quickly to answer your questions. But I notice some sneaky fake ones turning up in there, so I've got to be careful which ones I read out immediately. So I've got a question from Sultana. During a telehealth appointment, when we share our screens, the client can't see us, just the screen you share. Would it be possible to allow both so they can see our screen and us simultaneously? That is a very good question, and I don't know the answer to it. I assume so. I don't see any reason why we couldn't be showing both, but I'm not 100%. It's been a while since I've been sort of more deeply involved in the tech part of those video calls. I think if someone in our team can put that one aside and maybe we can come back to you on it, or even at least investigate it and see what options we have available to do so. I think that'd be a good one to check out and find out about. So we'll look into it if it's possible. So someone from the neuro rehab practice is asking, when they do team meetings, they book them as an appointments with the staff who we've registered as clients. Is there a better way of booking staff supervision without it being counted as appointment? I think it's got to be in the calendar in some way, whether or not you can use an unavailable block for it. I don't know if you've tried that. That will block out the time, and then you could use the notes of the unavailable block just to say who's going to be attending that session. Would that be enough for you, or does the person need a client record in Cliniko for it as well? And probably relevant whether all the people are practitioners or you're talking some admin people as well. So I'd say it's going to be a workaround because we're not really set up for that purpose. You could, if you can give some more info, I can try to do better on that one, but I would guess that maybe an unavailable block with the notes describing it could be your best option for it. So Victoria's asking about group emails to target patient retention. Something that, like an integration, people that have integrated with us clinic apps do this, but they don't want to sign up to that and spend the more money if the group patients haven't been seen for a period. So there's a couple of options for that already. So one is that you could do a data export from Cliniko with your patient list, and it will show the most recent appointment or their latest appointment in that spreadsheet that exports. You could filter that using Excel or whatever program you use to filter down to that date, a certain time ago. And then with that, you could import it into an email marketing program like MailChimp. You could just use an email program on your computer and do effectively a mail merge that will send an email to all of those people. And you can do that for free right now. So if you really want to spend zero on top of Cliniko, you would do it like that. We did bring in a bulk email feature into Cliniko. I'm trying to think if even it has enough info in it to be able to do it. It's not going to be automated though, I guess, is the thing. It won't be an automated solution to it where it's just constantly doing. This is going to be something that you're going to export and choose to do at some regularity. The only way you could automate it might be with MailChimp automations. Now, it is another service, and I think it's not so expensive, depends on the size of your client list. they do have automations based on different fields, and we do push across, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe someone could confirm in the chat if I'm wrong, I think we push across the latest appointment date, so you could do the same thing in MailChimp and use an automation for it. They're probably the options you have at the moment. None of that rules out us doing better on it in future, but there's no immediate plan to do so. So the group reminder emails, I see Keith has followed up. Someone coming for 2 appointments, so we place it one after another, but the emails get sent for both. Yeah, that's... honestly, Keith, you have it not so bad when you only have 2. I know there's people that will set up appointments for like a class or something for 52 weeks in a year, and then it's much worse. We had prioritized it to fix it. Obviously, we didn't get to it, but we absolutely should. We need a solution to it. I think it's a bad experience for your client. So I will see, and again, if maybe someone in our team can just note and message me on that one, and I'll see what happened to it last time, and if it's something we can prioritize, because I think it should be fixed sooner than later. So the neuro rehab practice, I see come back, said that you want the reminders to go out to them for the meeting. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if we're going to go down that path or not. I just don't know. So I see what you're saying, and it would be good to have them in there. You know, as like I said, as staff, not as a client. They're already in there as a user, so we could be adding users. I assume you have them as a user in Cliniko, not as a practitioner. And we could have the ability to add a user to a session. We kind of designed the calendar, you know, the intent was around the appointments with clients, but doesn't mean it needs to be. Probably that one just needs some more thought. I don't have an immediate answer on it. I can see the need for it. I'm not sure that it's going to be one that gets prioritized super high on the list compared to some of the other things we have going, but I'll have a think about it and, you know, possibly. Something else I'll just mention, although may not be relevant to the people that are watching along with this, is I like to promote when I get a chance. We're going to be hiring shortly at Cliniko. We do need to add some more people to our support team. So if you or you know some people that might be looking for that type of role in the near future, probably keep an eye on our Facebook, our Twitter, or in Cliniko, we'll probably put a notice as well to announce that in the coming week or two. We'll be looking for people in both Australian and UK time zones, but they'll be able to work from wherever as long as they're in a time zone similar to those. So that's something we have coming up pretty soon. I think we're going to look to add a few people to our team to cover those times. So Keith is asking if it's possible to skip sending appointment reminders if the appointment's marked as DNA. We wouldn't send a reminder after the appointment has occurred. Do you mark it as DNA before the appointment? I don't quite understand what that case would be. If you're doing it like as a workaround to block the reminder for something else. Maybe if you can put some more detail, Keith, I could have a think on that one. So a question about using the body charts in the forms that go to your clients. This one's come up a few times. We've been discussing it internally of late. We have some technical challenges with doing so at the moment. As you probably know, when you go to do body charts in Cliniko, it kind of takes you to a separate area. It goes full screen, but it's almost like a separate little application that we're using to run the body charts component. And we did that because of the complexity of the page and, you know, sort of how much code is running there and how it can slow the browser at times. So embedding it into the form in its current state would be tricky. And that's why we haven't been looking to do so yet. But the reason that it's so complex in Cliniko is it has more functionality than the patient would require. We're storing a lot more things for sort of audit trail and logging, and potentially even for those diagrams to be able to be edited later. We have some information stored behind the scenes that the patient or client would not need. So I think if we did a stripped down version, it would be possible. But because we need to make a stripped down version and not just reuse the existing part as it is, it makes it a bigger job and has meant it's not high on our priority while we're doing the other things for forms. at the moment. So I'm just going to take a couple more questions that we might have coming through, and then might finish up this session. So just some overall things though for people that are here. A reminder again, if you do have feature requests, I'm more than happy to discuss them, but you don't need to wait for a session like this. We have community.cliniko.com where there's feature requests there, and you can go and post them at any time. We will see and read all of those, and you'll be able to discuss them with other people as well. And also don't forget, if you're stuck with something, you can always use the help chat with us within Cliniko to get some help from our support team too. So I've got Keith that's followed up. We get patients calling the day before to reschedule, but no firm date, so we mark it as DNA before the appointment is emailed. Is there a reason? I guess you don't mark it as cancelled because you don't want to disappear off the calendar. Might be why you're not using cancelled. Because if you did cancelled and then you went to the missed appointments report, you would be able to look up all the appointments that were cancelled in a period, whether they've rebooked. You could see the next appointment date there, I believe, and be able to see if you charged or not, or if you need to. So maybe that workflow would work better for you. But I'm not sure. I mean, I can check if you have to. I don't see why we couldn't stop the reminder if it was marked as DNA. So if someone in our team can message that, I can look into it and just see if we can think of any ramification. And if not, we could do it. But I think that perhaps doing the cancellation and using the missed appointments report, maybe that would work for you as well. So Sarah's asked, what are our thoughts on a Cliniko Facebook group for users to interact and see how each other use the system? I don't know. I think there's a lot of value in it. I'm maybe not the right person to ask that one. I'm not a huge fan of Facebook with their privacy concerns and some of the integrity choices they make. So we do use Facebook for Cliniko because we know that it's useful to the people that are engaged with us, and it's a place that you are already. But we've made some changes recently which we haven't talked about yet. But we've been boycotting boosting any of our posts on Facebook. So we used to pay some advertising money to boost our Facebook posts, and we've stopped doing so. So also on that, if you find you're not seeing our Cliniko posts as often, you might need to actually go and actively check our page, because without the boosting, it doesn't get shown as much. So I like the idea of it in concept. And maybe it's just the thing we need to do because Facebook groups are so popular and it's where people are at. But I would love it if we found a different avenue that wasn't Facebook. Although the community site we built had that intent, but it doesn't do the same thing because you have to go out of your way to get to it, whereas you're already on Facebook. So I think that's something probably support people and others in our team that are watching this might have ideas on. And like I said, I might not be the best person to make that decision. So it's a question, this is a really topical question. They've said Xero soon requires 2FA for a reception computer that multiple practitioners use. How can I avoid one device being linked to it? So firstly, what this is there's some policy changes specifically in Australia, but Xero have made some policy changes as well. That means you can no longer have an application like Cliniko linked to Xero if you don't enforce two-factor authentication on those users. So we must mandate in Cliniko in the next month or so that anyone doing the Xero integration must turn on 2FA in Cliniko, or you won't be able to use the Xero integration. It's a mandate coming from them, but one I quite like because the security increase in using two-factor authentication is big. What I don't know exactly what they're asking here is to avoid one device being linked to it for multiple practitioners that use. I mean, if you've got different people using a computer, they can log out when they're done and someone else can sign in and they would use their own codes. If you're not doing that, I'm not too sure. Maybe that is a good question to send through to our support with your exact scenario that they could help you out with it. So someone's asking, with 2FA enabled, can you log in if you forgot your phone? So you cannot. It does require that second factor authentication to be able to log in. The only thing with that is we're looking at a change for two-factor authentication which is kind of like remember your second factor for a period of time. So maybe when you log into Cliniko, every time you need your username and password, but maybe only once a month do we ask you for two-factor authentication on that specific device. So if we know you've logged in on this device with it once, maybe you don't need it again for another 30 days. So you get the benefit of two-factor authentication, but without the inconvenience of using it every time. So we're working on how that might look, but I think that's a change we're going to have coming in the near future. So someone here has posted, Greg, that they grow coffee in their backyard and they are in New South Wales. Greg, you should definitely send through a note via Cliniko Help and ask for me and give me more details on the coffee you grow in the backyard here. It's something that I've long wondered, but never really drink any coffee from Australia. So I am interested to hear more about what you're up to with that. Another question, outstanding invoice report, can't convert to Excel, so I use data exports, but doesn't show outstanding invoices, just all invoices in a date range. Can you add an outstanding report? So I think Victoria, and again, maybe someone from our support team that's in the chat could help out. I think that it should show if the invoice is open or not, or if there's an outstanding balance on it that you could filter in Excel to only see the outstanding invoices. So I believe you can do that right now in Excel, but just maybe someone in our team can comment with a specific to help you out with that, or you can reach out. You can reach out via help within Cliniko to do so. Someone saying, can't believe I'm drinking coffee at 8 p.m. We were trying to do a session that was not always just in Australian hours, so it's good for people in the UK as well. I'll know in a few hours if I regret having this coffee at this time of day. So I think we'll finish up now. I really appreciate everyone that's joined and asked questions and come along for this event. I'm sure we'll do more of these in future. So if you registered for this, you would be on the mailing list unless you opted out of it. And we'll let you know when a session like this is coming up again. I think that someone from our team might be able to link a feedback form in the comments. If you're okay to, that was fast. I think they're finding it now. So if you're able to fill in that form, that would be much appreciated, just to see if there's anything we need to change, or if you have any comments or anything to how to make a session like this more useful. We're very keen to hear from you about it. And I think we'll aim to do another one of these in maybe a month or so as well, that you can come along and ask questions if you have at that time. So thank you everyone for joining, and also if you have questions that come out of this, you can always just comment on the YouTube video later too, and we'll be watching those and able to join in and answer those there. Thanks everyone, and goodbye.